When you think about what brachot you say on fruits and vegetables, it can sometimes seem kind of bizarre. For example, the tomato is scientifically classified as a fruit, yet we say adama, the bracha of vegetables on it. Similarly, bananas, which actually grow on a tree, we don't say the bracha of bor pe'ayetz. So what's the deal with these seemingly incorrect brachot? If we look into the Mishnah and other sources, it can help us uncover the answers to these questions. The Mishnah on Daf Mem Amud Aleph states, if you made the bracha of bor adama on fruits of a tree, you are yotze. If you said the bracha of bor pe'ayetz on the fruit of the earth, you are not yotze. On all of these, if you said the blessing of shakol, you are yotze. The Gemara immediately says on this, who taught that the main growth of the tree is from the land? Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak says it is Rav Yehuda. For we learn in a Braita that if the spring dried up and the tree was cut down, he brings it and doesn't read. Rashi explains later on what it means by read. Rabbi Yehuda says he brings it and he reads. So a question is brought up, why is one yotze when saying hadama on ha'etz food? Rashi states that the main source of growth on fruits comes from the ground and everything grows from it. He also explains that the case we are dealing with is he has a field that needs irrigation and he had a spring which he irrigated it with, and he took the fruits, the first fruits, bikurim, from it. Afterward, the spring and the field dried up and he cut down the tree on which the bikurim grew. Rashi says that the disagreement on this case is that according to the Tanna Kama, when he brings the bikurim, he can't read the pasuk of from the ground that you have given me, which is said when bringing bikurim, because since the spring dried up and the tree was cut down, the land is now nothing to him. So the second question that's asked, why can he no longer recite this pasuk? Rashi explains that according to Rabbi Yehuda, he's allowed to read it and bring this pasuk because the land itself is the main growth source. Toso states that we follow the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda since we learned like him in an anonymous Mishnah, and if one said hadam on the fruits of the tree, you are yotze. Tosfos adds another reason to why you would read this pasuk of bikurim, because it appears that he isn't praising Hashem, rather he is complaining to Hashem that his land is no longer bearing fruits.
The Gemara continues, it is simple that if one made a ha'etz or on a hadama food, he is not yotze. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak says it is only necessary to mention this because of the opinion of Rav Yehuda, that he says wheat is a type of tree. For it was taught in a Braita that the tree that Adam HaRishon ate from Rav Meir says it was a grape tree because wine brings about howling into a person more than anything else. Rashi adds that this brings about death. As it says in Parsha Noach, that he drank wine and became drunk. Rav Nechemiah says it was fig tree because the thing that they hurt themselves with, they also fix themselves with. As it says, and they sowed fig leaves. They sinned by eating from the fig tree, but they were able to do tshuva by making clothes from the fig tree. Rav Yehuda says that it was wheat because a child doesn't know how to call his parents until he tastes the taste of grain. Rashi says this is why it is called the tree of knowledge. Since Rav Yehuda says that wheat is a type of tree, I would have thought that you should say ha'etz on it. Therefore, it informs you that where do you make the blessing of borei pri ha'etz, when you pick the fruits and it endures. Rashi explains this to mean that the branches of the tree endure, and it returns to producing. Rashi says that this means it returns to producing other fruits. But where you pick the fruits and it does not endure and return to produce, we don't say on it ha'etz, but rather ha'adama. Tosfot in Masechet Brachot Daf Chet comments that we see that Adam HaRishon ate from a grain tree, and we therefore see an example of fruit from a tree that you don't say ha'etz on, because after the fruit is picked, it does not endure. The Rosh gives the general rules to determine what is ha'etz and what is ha'adama. Anything that makes its fruit from year to year is called a fruit tree, but anything that needs to be replanted every year is called the fruit of the land. The Rosh further explains that whenever the fruit is found by the grass or roots of the tree, it's ha'adama. And whenever you find the fruit on a branch of a tree, you say ha'etz.
From all of these different sources, we can see what is the halacha if one made a mistake and said the wrong bracha on his fruit or vegetable. We also know that in certain odd cases of fruits and vegetables, like a tomato, even though it's considered a fruit. Since in halacha it's considered a vegetable, because it has to be replanted every year, so therefore we say adama on it. Also, bananas, they only produce one crop harvest, so they are also considered adama because they're not perennial and they don't establish themselves from year to year. In Sif Gimel, the Mishnah Berurah states that there are fruits called broombeeren and erfurt, and it's the opinion of the Magen Avram and the Elia Rabbah that you should say on them at eitz, because its branches are established for a long time, and when you pick its fruit, the branches return to producing fruit. There are also a certain type of red fruit that grow in forests that you say hadam on, and some of these fruits even grow in gardens. The Chai Adam holds that you should say hadam on them, but if he made a mistake and he said it eitz, he should eat a little bit of the fruit, so it won't be a bracha levatala, even more so. There's also fruits that grow in short trees, even if they're lower than a 3 tfachim. It's the opinion of the Magen Avram and many other achronim that you should say eitz on them, but really we say hadam on them, because these fruits, they don't have a taste that's the taste of a fruit, so it's not the correct bracha for them. Seif Bet goes on and teaches us that fruits can be called fruits of a tree, even though the branches are very thin. One of our questions is that whether there's a difference between whether a fruit grows on the branch of a tree and the roots of a tree. The answer is clear if we look to the Shulchan Aruch, who says that there is a difference, and that if something cannot be called a fruit unless if the fruit actually grows on the branch of a tree. But if it grows on the roots of the tree, it's considered adama, and you can't say it's on it. There's another type of berry called still nusel that they grow in forest, but these need investigation because they're not really edible until you actually cook them. So since you have to cook them before you eat them, it may be that these are shahakal and not eitz. The Shulchan Aruch and Siman Reish Gimel says that berries that grow on thorn bushes, one should say hadam on them. The Ramah goes on and adds that something is not called a tree unless its fruit are found in the branches itself, but if its fruit is found in the roots, it is not called a tree. Also, therefore, if a tree's branches were destroyed in winter and began to flower again in the roots, you say on hadam and not eitz. The Mishnah Berurah comments on this and goes on in depth on what qualifies certain fruits to be hadam or eitz. Sif Aleph says there are certain types of species of berries. Some of these species grow in trees, and you could say eitz on them. There are also some of these berries, they grow in trees that are established themselves from year to year, and since they do that, we say eitz on them.